All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dina, and I'm one of the team here at Elderwerks Educational Services. Elderworks is a non-for-profit organization that focuses on all ages, all aspects of aging, from senior housing to options for home, care solutions, services, and benefits. Elderworks took on the initiative this year because scams and the technology that are leading seniors to scams have become just a huge problem. We took on the initiative to share technology and information on scams on a monthly basis. Today, we have Edwin from BMO Bank, and he's going to be speaking on identity theft. And I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself and explain a little bit more about his role at BMO.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edwin Urbieta. I'm from BMO Bank. I'm a regional relationship manager, and what I do for BMO is exactly this: financial wellness workshops. Anything you can think of banking related, I do those wellness workshops. I've been in banking for over 20 years, so please feel free to ask me any questions throughout the entire presentation. Today, what we're going to talk about is identity theft. It has been a huge hot topic, especially this month. So it's really critical that we understand what's going on out there and some key things to take a look to some red flags to look out for as well too. So we're going to go ahead and get started with identity theft. And please feel free to unmute yourself. And if you have any questions throughout the entire presentation, please feel free to go ahead and ask any questions throughout the entire presentation. We will have a Q&A at the end, but if something comes up and you want to just ask a question, please feel free as well too. Okay. All right. So when it comes to identity theft, has tell me everything you know about identity theft. Has anyone experienced identity theft out there? Or what have you seen? Has anyone seen anything out there, identity theft?
Yes.
Edwin, we do have several people on that have experienced that. So I think without going into specifics of what they have found, maybe we'll just go on.
Sounds good. Now, when it comes to identity theft, there's a couple things that I do want to share. There is a victim of identity theft every 2 seconds. You're more likely to have your identity stolen than have your car stolen or home burglarized. Okay. Now, when it comes to identity theft, there is identity theft and identity fraud. And these are terms used to refer to all types of crimes in which someone wrongfully obtains and uses another person's personal data in some way. When it comes to identity fraud, it occurs when someone's personal information is used to access the money. Now, for identity theft, it's when personal information is accessed, and even if it's not used for financial gains. For example, cyber crimes or criminal activities, where someone's identity was stolen to commit those criminal activities. Now, men and women are both equally targeted for identity crimes, but people who are usually 60 years and older have a higher increase of risk when it comes to identity fraud and identity theft. Now, how do identity thieves use your identity? Well, they make transactions against your bank accounts, your credit cards. They open new accounts, credit cards, bank accounts, utility bills, cell phones. They commit fraud. They commit cyber crimes. They get prescription, and they receive medical treatment. Now, receiving medical treatment is really important because keep in mind that if someone does receive medical treatment, it can definitely have a negative impact not just on your medical records, but also you might receive a high cost bill for that medical treatment. So a lot of people might say, okay, you know what? They use my medical treatment. who cares? No, it does matter because it can have a negative impact on your medical history, especially in the future if you try to apply for certain things and it shows up on your medical history, that can definitely have a negative impact on you. Not to mention the cost, a huge bill. They can perhaps come from just receiving that medical treatment. What can be used to steal your identity? Well, obviously your social security number, your name, your birthday, your address, your driver's license, your passport, your marriage records, your insurance cards, credit card bills, personal checks, email addresses. That can be used to steal your medical to steal your identity. Um, Now, methods used by identity thieves, well, there is theft when they steal it from your purse, from your wallet. That's one way for them to be able to steal your information. Dumpster diving is when they go into your dumpster and what they're looking for is they're looking for those bank statements, those pre-approval credit cards, any personal information. That's what they're looking for when they're doing dumpster diving. Shoulder surfing, it's when they're looking over your shoulder to see what your information, especially when you're using your debit card. And one thing I always tell people is make sure you block your debit card when you're out there using it. Mail fraud. Two different types of mail fraud usually comes about. First is when they steal the mail directly from the mailbox. The second one is, believe it or not, is when they reroute your mail. So rerouting your mail to a different address, and that's as simple as just going online and rerouting your mail. So if you have bank statements, if you have any type of statements that you're expecting and you're not receiving it, one thing you're going to want to do is call your financial institution just to verify that your mail was sent to you. And then skimming devices. Skimming devices is when they put a device at an ATM, for example, or a merchant machine, gas stations is when they're putting a skimming device, and what they want to do is they want to steal your debit card information or your credit card, and along with your PIN number, also too. Now, common scams of fraud. The first one is phishing scams. Phishing scams is when the purpose of it is to have you reveal your personal information. Not necessarily trying to steal money from you, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to steal your personal information. And this is either through a text message, through a email, or even a website, fraudulent links on websites. Telephone scams. A telephone scam is obviously when they're calling you from your financial institution, or pretend that they're calling you from a financial institution or calling you from the government, and having you reveal certain information. And then obviously there's elder fraud scams against the elderly. Now, sorry. When it comes to phishing emails, keep an eye out for things like this. For example, in this email, it's an email from National Bank, but when you look at the sender, you're gonna notice that John Smith at National Bank is missing the I. So in this case, keep an eye out for things like that. If they're pretending like they're from your bank, take a look at the sender. Take a look to see who really sent it to you. And is it really from National Bank or is it from National Bank? And then take a look at the greetings, the generic greetings, dear customer, instead of dear John Smith. And then you're receiving this email because your account has been compromised. If you do nothing, your money will be gone. Please sign in using the link below, or else your account and all its money will be terminated within 36 hours. So on professional language, how do you terminate money? And then obviously when you look at the link, the fake link, it's also missing the I. It's in nationalbank.com. So keep an eye out for those type of things. Will definitely help you when you're seeing those emails. What I'm gonna show you right now is I'm gonna show you a couple of examples of fraudulent scams out there. And again, please feel free to ask any questions if you do have some. Now, here is a phone scam. Hello, Mrs. James. You're the lucky winner of the $1 million lottery. Congratulations. All you need to do is verify your identity with your social security number and provide us with details of your bank account where we can wire you the money. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you act now, we should be able to waive all the taxes on the amounts. I have all the paperwork with me right here. Let's start with your social security number. Can anyone tell me what's wrong with this email? So you're the experts. What's wrong with this phone scam? I'm sorry, with this phone scam. Does anyone want to share? All right. So what's wrong with this phone scam is that one, I always tell customers is, did you ever play the lottery? Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is that uh, they're asking you to act now. So sense of urgency. Okay. Even though they're not actually, so a red flag is a sense of urgency, and they're asking you to act now. Um, and then obviously they're asking you for your social security number and they're asking you for your account number. So for lottery winners is something that we do see a lot in banking, where people either receive emails, they receive phone calls saying that they won the lotto. And a lot of times they'll ask you to send them upfront money to pay for your taxes. Whenever they ask you for upfront money to pay for your taxes, that's a red flag for scam, and just keep an eye out for that. And then also here, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you act now, we should be able to waive all the taxes. Well, first of all, they don't work. I could be wrong, but they don't work for the IRS. The IRS is not going to allow them to waive the taxes. Obviously, their IRS is going to want their taxes, right? So here is another one. This is a phone scam activity. Hi, I'm friends with your nephew. He's in trouble with the law and needs your help. He got arrested last night and is now in jail. He needs bail money before he can be released. It's a long story, but he asked me to call you instead of his parents because he's embarrassed about what happened to him. He needs you to wire money in the next hour from Western Union. It's important that you send this money right away. So, does anyone want to become the expert and point out the red flags here? All right. So a couple red flags. One is I'm friends with your nephew. Doesn't really name the nephew. Two, he doesn't really say things of what really happened here. So he's not mentioning exactly what happened. Three, he's asking not to, in a way, he's asking you not to mention it to the parents. So keeping it secret. Four, sense of urgency. Wire money in the next hour from Western Union. It's important you send this money right away. So that's a sense of urgency. So that's a lot of times that's what they're going to do. And sometimes fraudsters, what they do is they're going to want to stay on the phone with you and walk you through the bank. And sometimes they even guide you on what to say to the banker or the teller when you're making a withdrawal as well too. So, but these are all red flags on from this scenario. Here is another one. At 87 years old, Mr. Ali lives alone in his house. His wife passed away 10 years ago, and his children live in a different states. Recently, he met a young man called Samir, who said he was Mr. Ali's long-lost nephew. Samir quickly moved into Mr. Ali's house and helped with his daily chores. Mr. Ali was so grateful that he agreed to give Samir power of attorney so that he could manage the household finances. So obviously, does anyone want to point out the red flags on this one? So the biggest red flags is when you meet someone claiming to be a long lost nephew. Okay. And the other one is power attorney, giving someone a power attorney. So you have to be cautious who you give power attorney to. So just keeping an eye out for things like that. All right. So another one, elder fraud scam activities. Mrs. Garcia was 70 years old when she gave her niece, Angela, power of attorney. Recently, Mrs. Garcia has become quiet and sad. She does not leave the house for her daily walk anymore. Her neighbors noticed that Angela bought an expensive new car and claimed it was from her aunt. Angela is also making plans to remodel and expand the guest bedroom and plans to move in. Since it's her aunt's house, intends to use her aunt's funds to pay for the expenses. When Angela is not around, Mrs. Garcia complains that some of her things are missing. So some of the red flags. Obviously, with the red flags, one is that buying an expensive car. Two, it's doing expensive repairs on the house using Mrs. Garcia's funds. Three is obviously Mrs. Garcia complaining that some of the things are missing. Four is that she does not leave the house for her daily walks anymore. So her behavior has changed. So keeping an eye on things like that can definitely help you, especially when you're talking to your friends, talking to people, and verifying that these behave, taking a look to see if you see these type of behaviors with some of your friends as well too. So those are all red flags, and those are things that even us, when we're working banking, we keep an eye out for. So we know someone that's coming consistently to the bank, and we see that now there's a change in their behavior. We do ask a lot more questions to verify what's going on and making sure that there's no elder abuse there as well too, especially for older people. Now, special cases of identity theft. There is child identity theft, medical identity theft, and there's tax identity theft. When it comes to child identity theft, is children's personal information may be used by thieves to open accounts, apply for and use credit cards, apply for social services benefits, and so on. I will tell you that apparently when I was 5 or 6 years old, someone did use my identity, and because I have something showing that apparently I worked when I was 5 years old. Medical identity theft. A thief can use your medical identity theft to access healthcare and get prescription medication or claim insurance benefits. And then there's the tax identity theft. Once thieves have access to your social security number and name, they may file a tax return using your identity so that they receive a large tax return. So keeping an eye out for the IRS claiming that there has been another return already filed under your social security number. So red flags of identity theft, denials, denials of credit card application or services, denials of services, utility, rent, mortgages, etc. Unusual activity, unusual charges on credit cards or financial accounts, unusual charges in credit reports and credit scores, unusual calls from debtors or collection agencies for debts you have not owed, unusual bills for services or products that you have not used, unusual increases in insurance or interest rates, IRS reports. IRS reports indicating that more than one person has filed a tax return using your social security number. IRS reports indicating wages received from unknown sources. Incorrect medical history information, incorrect medical bills, and then obviously lost items, lost mail, lost bills. So protecting against identity theft, do's and don'ts. Do monitor your account, credit reports and credit scores. Do monitor your financial statements. Do practice online safety. Do secure important documents. Do be aware of your surroundings. Don't use public Wi-Fi to access sensitive information. Don't click on unknown links and don't open suspicious attachments. All right, ways to protect yourself against identity theft. Credit monitoring services, identity monitoring services. People usually do identity monitoring services because in case someone steals your identity, they do a crime against them. So if someone takes them to court, they'll receive that monitoring, informing them that someone's going to court. Credit or security freezes to be able to secure your credit score. So in case somebody actually tries to apply for credit cards, apply for bank accounts, apply for any type of credit related products, the credit card, their social security number is frozen. So in other words, if you do want to apply for a credit card or open another bank account, you do have to unfreeze your Social Security for you to be able to apply for it. And then there's fraud alerts. You can actually do a fraud alerts with the credit bureaus where they'll put a fraud alert for free for up to 1 year. You can always do a credit or security freeze on your Social Security with the credit bureaus, and that one stays there until you decide to unfreeze it. But for fraud alerts, they actually stays in place for 1 year, and that's also free too. Both are free. Now, how the law protects you? Obviously, if someone does a identity theft, that is a federal crime, and they could be in prison for 15 years. And then there are regulations that protects you with the banks as well too, because the bank has to protect your identity. So when you open accounts, the bank usually gives you or they have to give you a privacy policy showing you how they protect your data and notify you about how they use your information. Steps to take after identity theft. One is collect information and review accounts. Two is report to FTC, fraud departments, and law enforcement. And then three is to repair the damage. So obviously, if someone does do fraud against you, definitely contact the bank and let them know what's going on. And then if verify your accounts, make sure that if there has been any transaction in your account, you let the bank know. With some banks, they will ask you to file a police report, and some of the banks do not require police reports. But definitely, if someone does steal your identity or someone does steal your purse, your wallet, your IDs, make sure you do contact all your financial institutions and let them know what's going on with your information. And then, so that's all I have for identity theft. Wanted to leave it open for Q&A and see if anyone has any questions out there around identity theft. Some things that you probably have seen that maybe perhaps I didn't share and you want to share with the group, or things that maybe perhaps you want to know more about as well too. Anyone? Well, Deanna, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it back to you. But again, thank you everyone for joining the presentation. And if you have any questions, obviously reach out to Elderworks, and they'll be glad to provide you additional information as well too. Thank you, everyone.
People are leaving questions in the chat.
Oh, there are.
Yeah, they're using I've been using it, and so you may
Got it.
seeing
Let me
it
see here. So I do see questions in the chat. So let me bear with
in
me.
comments.
Let's see here. Let me see if I see any questions here. Yes. So someone shared that if they have a nephew, I would know to always tell nephew parents. Yes. So if that is the biggest. The one thing I do want to share about scams when you receive phone calls. Um, Definitely, if they say don't talk to the parents, you're always going to want to talk to the parents. Two, the biggest theft out there does come from family members or does come from in banking. In banking, we know that the biggest theft does come from, unfortunately, from family members or also from caregivers. So we're always keeping an eye out for that, and that's the reason why in banking we do ask a lot of questions. And sometimes please don't take it personal if you go to the bank and they're asking you questions, and that's because they're asking questions to make sure that they're protecting you. And then they also have an obligation to ask certain questions as well too. This is this by yourself. He, so I'm reading some of the stuff that people wrote. People don't seem to like when you get involved in their family issues. Yeah. How would you know if someone has done medical identity theft? One is because you're obviously going to go ahead and receive a medical bill. A lot of times, you know, But when you receive a medical bill that someone actually did use they did a medical identity theft. Another time is, unfortunately, is when you're applying for certain things, um, other medical insurances, or even if you're applying for life insurance, sometimes things do pop out showing that someone has done medical identity theft on you. There are no cost identity monitoring services or credit monitoring services. How does putting them in prison for 15 years help fix damage that was done? Yeah, if by putting someone in, well, the only thing I will tell you is that by putting someone in jail, maybe perhaps that prevents them from doing fraud against other people as well too. Also, if there is someone did do fraud against you or against your identity, that's when you start getting the financial institutions involved. That's when you start reporting to the credit bureaus, making sure that you do file reports with the credit bureaus to clean your identity, to clean your credit scores. Should I be in Facebook in order to chat? Actually, I think just Zoom, you had been able to chat. My case is federal. I'm paying on something I never got. Federal government does not care. Pandemic helped these thieves. Um, for I'm not quite sure exactly what the federal crime was that was done to you. It depending on what the federal crime was done. Yeah, definitely work with the right departments to figure out what they can do to help you with that. Let's see here. Last week, a debit card transaction, I am made to feel like a suspect when trying to figure this out. Every federal department you have to make the reports. Every federal department you have to make reports. Transaction, I am made. I'm not quite sure. For Catherine, I'm not sure what the question is. Last week in debit card transaction, I am made to feel like a suspect when trying to figure this out. Every federal department you have to make reports. Not sure what the question is.
So I will say, Edwin, thank you very much for your presentation, and we will be able to answer any additional questions that are going on. I think when you do think something is going on with your bank account or your credit card, it's reaching out as soon as you find something suspect. I will tell you, a lot of the police departments are now taking reports as well. I am trying to take a look of the question. Yes, Federal Trade Commission is one that you can do reports to. I will tell you that there are some scams going on, not specific to identity theft, but financial scams. And the FBI and local agencies are getting involved as well. Edwin, can you talk a little bit about, other than going to their bank or their credit card, what other avenues they have to report?
Yeah. So a couple things. One is if you do find out that there's been some type of crime against you, and what you can do is a couple of things. You can actually report to that financial institution. You can let them know what happened if that wasn't you. Or two, you can send a certified letter to the 3 credit bureaus. So by sending them a certified letter, they can start the process of finding out of what happened with those transactions. If they find out that it wasn't you who did those transactions, then they're going to go ahead and remove that from your credit report.
I think there's the other question about, how do you freeze your social security number?
By contacting the 3 credit bureaus. So you can transfer in Equifax and Experian, you can contact them and then they can freeze your your social security.
I think the next question is, how can you send a certified letter online if someone is homebound? I think in that case, we can talk about resources that could potentially help you do that. for the individual who's asking that question, if you want to give us a call, we may be able to, Elderworks may be able to help you figure that out with somebody that is trusted to be able to help you with that. And I know Social Security Administration also, if you think somebody is playing with that, then you want to be able to also let the Social Security Administration know that you think your ID has, your Social Security number has been jeopardized or possibly. There was a question about free credit and safe ID theft protection companies. Edwin, can you speak to that at all? As far as I know, we don't really have a free one that is out there and accessible for everyone. I do know that your credit cards we'll do some checking on those. And then the question came down to LifeLock. There are other ones that are paid out there. Edwin, can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, let me pull out, bear with me, I'm gonna pull out the actual link. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull it out really quick here.
For all of you that are on that have been affected by identity theft and scams, for that, I am sorry from the bottom of my heart. I know I had nothing to do with it, but it is very frustrating to our team here at Elderworks, and I know BMO and other organizations that seniors work so hard for their future and their funds, and there are, can I say, creeps out there who want to take advantage of that. So we want to make sure that we can do that.
So
Edwin?
one thing you can do is you can go to annualcreditreport.com. So that's annualcreditreport.com. You can go there once a year and you can verify your credit history. It doesn't show your credit score, but it does show your credit history. It's a good resource to be able to verify if anyone has filed anything or anyone has actually used a social security number to apply for a credit card, to apply for lending products. So definitely using that once a year to verify if anyone has committed fraud against a social security number. Now, when it comes to other sources like LifeLock, there are other sources, other organizations you can use to be able to freeze your credit reports. I usually tend not to provide which one is better than the other one, but there are resources that you can use to be able to where they can help you make sure that your Social Security is frozen and no one is out there using Social Security number. So there are companies like LifeLock and other ones out there that are really good to, then they can also help you with your monitoring your Social Security.
I believe there's another question in regards to how do you look at your own medical history? When you have insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, you can actually go to those individual providers and they can talk you through any summaries that have happened for those individual things. To see if there is anything within your files. Also speaking with your healthcare providers. Edwin, do you have any other suggestions on the medical?
No, that's the only one that I know of as well too that gives you that information.
Okay.
Now, there is a question about, I tried to look at those credit reporting agencies, but I do not understand. So I completely agree with you. Those reports are complicated. It does give you information on public records. It gives you information on personal information, credit accounts, and also credit inquiries. If you're not familiar with it, it could be a little bit complicated reading those reports. What you can do is you can talk to your banker, and if and you can provide those, you can share with the banker, and maybe perhaps they can give you guidance on how to read those reports. But it does give you all that information. It shows you the credit reports, credit cards, lending products, and if you don't recognize some of those credit cards or lending products, that's when you can definitely file a dispute with those transactions. But yes, reading those credit reports, it's a little bit complicated. So if you want to, and if your bank provides this service, you can definitely take it to your bank and see if they can help you read those reports. The one thing I will share with you, keep in mind that those reports does have a lot of personal information like your name, your birthday, social security, your address, your employer, even the name of your spouse. So those are reports that you're not going to want to just throw away in the garbage or anything like that. So you're going to want to make sure you dispose of those documents properly. But not those are reports that you're not just gonna want to leave around because it has all that information that people can use to steal your identity.
Okay, let me see. I think there might be one more question. Um, the question was Medicare and Medicaid hotlines don't help. So you actually have to open up additional dialogues with them, um, and go from there with Medicare and Medicaid. There are ways of doing it, and you just have to sort of be that squeaky wheel on that. Are there any specific questions right now on identity theft that Edwin can answer? If not, then what we're going to do is we will end the session for today. And if anybody has any additional questions, then we'll have those come to Elderworks. And if they're specific to Edwin and BMO Bank, then we will get those questions to him. Edwin?
The one thing I do want to share is that when someone does ask you for money because of whatever the case is, make sure that you do bring it to your banker's attention because a lot of times we're consistently seeing a lot of cases where the fraudsters are telling people, don't tell your bank, don't tell your bank, don't tell your financial institution. No, please bring it to your banker's attention because if you tell us a scenario, most likely we have heard it in the past, and if we heard it in the past, we'll bring it to your attention how we feel if about the case. There are for the most part, when someone brings us a case, most of the time it's fraudulent. So just if you bank at BMO, yes, bring it to the BMO bankers. If you bank at another bank, just definitely bring it to their attention.
You can also share with your local police department non-emergency number. You can call and say if you think you've been affected by scams. That is a good way to do that. They will also start a file and be able to help. So I think that ends our session today, Edwin, unless you see something else you want to answer right now.
Nope. Yeah, if you have any additional questions, please bring it to Elderworks' attention, and then they'll bring it to my attention. But it was great speaking with her. It was great doing this presentation to everyone. And again, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. Thank you, everyone.
All right, everyone, have a great day.